When looking at your hands, what do you see? Well, in one hand, we notice that we have 5 fingers, and they are all not the same size. That's because each and every one of them has its function, and they need each other to operate effectively. On the other hand, the same is replicated equally. When looking closely at them, we also realize that each one of them stands a few millimeters apart from one another. One will assume they are independent from one another, right? But yet, in an instant, they can all group together to generate great and impressive power or strength for bigger and greater accomplishments in our lifetime. This concept found in our hands should have been sufficient enough for us to ponder on when using the word independent very lightly, that many people in today's society tend to misuse it. Particularly to many women in some cases. The famous word independent has the capacity to make or break the beginning of something promising. Like in a loving relationship, for instance. One that could have lasted a lifetime only if a modification were used at the beginning of the word independent. Which will have considerably altered its meaning and its intention in a functioning relationship. Often, I ask myself, do most people really understand the term or the definition of the word independent? Or do they just recite it to show sign of strength and the ability to do it all alone, without auxiliary help or assistance? Are we in fact this delusional to confuse independence with interdependence? The ability for one to provide for the self is nothing but being self-sufficient, which is highly encouraged and suggested for everyone to be. And that is contrary to not ever be dependent on others for balance, survival, alternance. The types of women who are beating their chests with great pride while expressing that they are strong and independent women who don't need a man to do or not to do anything, nor providing for them. They are the same women who depend on their employers to provide them with a job opportunity. Which will ultimately result in their toxic mentality. Interdependence is catalytic for the functioning of a healthy society. As they used to say, the villagers need each other's help to better raise their progenies, including having a better community. See, having an affluent wealth or a reasonable amount of money doesn't equate to having knowledge or possessing all the needed skills in everything. For one to declare oneself a handyman or self-sufficient, which in turn will often place you in the positions to depend on others for services needed. Now, whether you have the financial means to pay for services rendered, you were unequivocally dependent on others for assistance in order to fulfill your needs. Your intellectual limit or lack of humanity thereof or wisdom persuades you to verbally regurgitate whatever comes to your mind, and with the intention to be condescending in some way. The idea of showing interdependence in an intimate or family relationship is essential in nurturing the ongoing coexistence. What would you do if the principal of your child's school called you to come and get your sick child while you're in the middle of your corporate graph presentation to the shareholders or members of the corporation? If you couldn't rely or depend on someone else's emergency assistance, so I want you to tell me, what would you have done if halfway during your plane trip and you realize that you have left the stove on in your house? That is, if you couldn't depend on someone else. Therefore, why would your mate develop any any desire of nurturing and growing old with you in a relationship? Where you constantly boasting about not needing anyone's assistance because of your great achievements and arrogance. Usually, this statement or state of mind or concept is often expressed by many black women who have never imagined that they could break the glass ceiling by completing their college studies or master's degrees. It's nothing but an accomplishment shock factor that somehow triggers a mental toxicity. Resulting with a chip on the shoulder. Generally, people with this type of attitude, especially minority women, tend to develop a feminist tendency where they often find themselves celibate or becoming single mothers or some miserable cat owners living by themselves. You see, next time, before using this famous term, independent, just take a moment to reflect on its true definition. Because without being interdependent, there is no way you will have acquired your degrees, much less being employed by some corporation, or even becoming an entrepreneur for that matter. Life functions alternatively on that cycle. I'm with Mac Bello, and this is Deep Thought. Until the next time.